Yeah. So now we will start with the activity diagrams. Okay, what we have seen? We have seen the structural diagrams. In the structural diagrams, you have seen the package diagrams, you have seen the object diagrams, you have seen the class diagrams. ये आपके सिलेबस में नहीं है, ये आपके सिलेबस में नहीं है. डिप्लॉयमेंट डायग्राम्स एंड कंपोनेंट डायग्राम्स आर लास्ट मॉड्यूल, इसको लास्ट में देखेंगे. Now we will start with the behavioral diagrams. Behavioral diagrams में one use case diagram we have already seen, right? Now today we will see the activity diagrams. So, किसी को डाउट है किसी चीज में अभी तक? क्लियर? कोई डाउट? क्या पढ़ रहे हैं? इतना ही बताओ ना जी क्या पढ़ रहे हो. चलो, so this is the how a activity diagram will look. Okay, let me just directly start with the examples. This a dotted colored circle, colored black circle. This is known as the initial state. See, in one word, if I tell you what is the activity diagram, it is nothing but it is a flow chart to explain a process. किसी एक प्रोसेस को एक्सप्लेन करने के लिए that how this process is happening step by step, you show this activity diagram. For example, if I ask you how the see packages में theoretically on paper this is the only symbol for generalization, Kshitij. But actually this depends from what UML software you are using. Okay, some for example visual paradigm supports this generalization. Normal same generalization like you use between classes. So the same generalization you will use between packages also. But some of the, for example, I don't think this symbol was present in UML, right? So instead of that, you can either use that containment operator plus circle wala jo tha. This will also mean that this package is contained under this or this is a type of this. मतलब explain हो जाती है meaning. Other ways you can make generalization also. Normal generalization बनाओ और stereotype लगा दो यहाँ पे. Oh sorry, normal dependency wala symbol you use the normal dependency syllabus and you use the stereotype as generalize or child class or inheritance, कुछ भी use कर दो, है ना? Basically you have this power of stereotype, right? अगर कोई UML का tool is not supporting a particular relationship or diagram, you use this stereotype to create that. ठीक है? So now what is the activity diagram? In one line, this is nothing but a flow chart. For example, if I ask you how does this if in programming languages, how does if work? This is a process if. How does this if works? So how you explain? सबसे पहले जब if पढ़ाएगा तो ऐसे पढ़ाएगा ना. First you match, there will be a condition. Okay, then you will match that condition. ऐसा symbol देखा होगा. अगर condition true होगी, then you will do something. अगर condition false होगी, then you will do something. यही होता है flowchart if का है, right? So this is the same activity diagram. जो flowchart पढ़ते हो, for का flowchart बनाना है, if का flowchart बनाना है, किसी भी एक process का flowchart बनाना है, that how that process is going to happen, that is nothing but activity diagram. If you remember in the use case diagrams, in your use case diagram, suppose this is my use case diagram, a banking system use case diagram. Okay, here one use case is check balance. Check balance. There is another use case, third use case. ऐसे बहुत सारे use cases है. Now this particular use case, check balance, what is this? This is nothing but a process in itself. That something is happening inside. In use case diagram, definitely we don't show what is happening inside. But this is a process in itself. So you can create an activity diagram for all the use cases. For example, suppose one use case is check balance. So you can create an activity diagram or a flow chart that how this check balance will work. Suppose there is another use case that deposit money. So this is a process in itself. This use case is a process in itself. So you can create an activity diagram for deposit money use case. So every single use case can be a process in itself, and you create an activity diagram for particular processes. We will see examples. First, let's see what are the things here. So this is your start state or initial state. Just like in your DFA, you have the initial state. This is your initial state. Means from up, see, now we are doing behavioral diagrams. Now the system will be moving. We will see interaction between the systems. Okay, चीजें हम यहाँ हिलनी शुरू होंगी. अब सिस्टम स्टेबल नहीं रहेगा कि एक बार क्लास ऑब्जेक्ट रिलेशनशिप बना दिया तो फिक्स्ड है, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. अब यहाँ पे चेंजेस आएंगे. यू कंपेयर समथिंग, अगर वो ट्रू होगा तो इस साइड जाओगे, वो फॉल्स होगा तो इस साइड जाओगे. means you are moving inside the system now. Okay, so this is your initial state, means from this state you will start, and this is your final state, means here the activity diagram comes to a halt. These arrows, ये जो ये arrow जो है, ये arrow जो है, ये arrow जो है, इनको बोलते हैं control flow. Means these arrows tells you in which direction you have to move, how you have to move in the system. These are known as control flows or edges, anything you can call it as. Fine. This diamond shaped thing that you are seeing here, this is known as decision node. Decision node means when you will reach here, this diamond shape, you have to make a decision. If the decision is true, you will move this side. If the decision is false, you will move this side. Then again the same diamond shape, but now the two control flows are coming here, it is merging, so this is known as a merge node. With example it will be clear. Okay, the same diamond shape, when the arrows were going away from it, it was known as decision node. Means you are taking a decision, either I have to move to this direction or I have to move to this direction. But when the arrows coincide or converges, it is known as a merge node. And these are actions. These rectangular box nahi hai, these are curved boxes, basically curved rectangular boxes. So these are your actions. अब example लेते हैं हो क्या रहा है system में. So you are starting from this initial node, then you reach here, you perform an action, you perform the action 1, any action it can be, then you move forward, then you have checked the condition here at the decision node that whether something is true or something is false. If something is true, I will move this side and I will perform action 2a, then I will perform action 3. If that something or that condition is false, I will move this side, I will perform action 2a and I will move this way. Basically एक control flow बता रहा है आपको कि you have started from here, you have checked the condition, then depending on the condition either you have taken this route or you have taken this route. Then finally चाहे आपने ये route लिया हो चाहे आपने ये route लिया हो, at last you will converge and will merge at this merge node, और वहां से फिर finally एक last में action लेंगे and you will reach your final state. Now let's take an example. Suppose you plan a outing on Saturday. Plan outing on Saturday. अब तो 6 घंटे की क्लास है, पर पहले की बात कर रहा हूं मैं. So you planned a outing on Saturday. Okay. So this is your first action, that you have planned a outing on Saturday. Now you have to check a condition. Suppose my first condition is you have money. My second condition is you don't have money. Now if you have money, if this decision node is decision node is true, you have the money, you can suppose go for a movie, then you can have dinner outside. If suppose you don't have the money, this decision node is false, you don't have the money, then you just go for a walk. But in both the cases, either you had the money and you went out for dinner and movie, or you didn't have the money and you just went for a walk, both the conditions are getting merged at this node, and then finally you go to sleep. This is how the control flow will work. किसी को दिक्कत? Let's take another example. This is the process for HR department. What is the process? The first action will obviously tell you the process. Means किस process के लिए activity diagram बनाया गया है. So this activity diagram has been made for the process manage employee. एक HR department अपने employees को manage करने के लिए activity diagram बना रहा है. Now how you will read this activity diagram? So you have to manage the employee. Now when you are trying to manage the employee, this is the first. अब ये बताओ क्या है, merge node है या decision node है? This is a merge node or you are making a decision here? It's a decision node, right? जल्दी को दो एरो बाहर जा रही है ना इससे, एक एरो यहाँ जा रही, एक एरो यहाँ जा रही, ये merge node है. जहां सब चीजें आके मर्ज हो रही हैं। सिंबल दोनों का सेम है, बस द पैटर्न टू रीड वेरीज। ये समझ आया ना सबको? डिसीजन नोड है ये डिसीजन नोड है, दिस इज द मर्ज नोड। बेसिकली मर्ज नोड पे यू कैन सी कोई भी एक्शन परफॉर्म नहीं हो रहा, वहां से सीधे यू विल गो टू एक्शन स्टेट, सम अदर स्टेट यू विल गो, बट अ डिसीजन नोड से कंडीशंस चेक हो रही होंगी इन द स्क्वायर ब्रैकेट लाइक दिस, कंडीशंस चेक हो रही होंगी। So this is your initial state. You have started from here, and this is the process that you have to manage the employee. Now, while managing the employee, this is the first decision that you have to make. This is the first question that you have to answer. Whether I am trying to manage an existing employee or I am trying to manage a new employee. If I'm trying to manage a new employee, I will go this side. And if I'm trying to manage an existing employee, I will go this side. Is it clear to everyone? So you started from the initial node, then you are trying to create this activity diagram for the process manage employee. Now the first question that you have to answer, or the first decision that you have to make, is whether I'm trying to make an existing employee or I'm trying to manage a new employee. If I'm trying to manage a new employee, I will create a new employee record. A record will be created. This is the action that is performed. Then I will move forward. If suppose I'm trying to manage an existing employee, then I'll move forward, and then again a question is asked. Then that the existing employee that you're trying to manage, is he still employed or is he is no longer employed? Then again a question is asked. The existing employee that you are trying to manage, is he no longer employed in your organization or is he still employed? If he is no longer employed, you will follow this direction. If he is still employed, you will follow this direction. So if he is still employed, then you will modify the employee record. If he is no longer employed, then you will terminate his employee card. Getting it? So basically we have started from this point, and here first we have checked the condition or made a decision. Based on this decision, we have moved either this side or this side. If we have moved this side, this is like if else condition happening. कुछ नहीं, if else काम हो रहा है और कुछ नहीं हो रहा है. Getting it? Finally, either you take this route or you take this route, or this hand is visible to everyone, right? This hand is visible. So either you take this route or you take this route or you take this route. Finally, all these three paths gets merged at one point. और यहां से फिर चाहे इधर से आए हो, चाहे इधर से आए हो, चाहे इधर से आओ, फाइनली यू विल गो एंड अपडेट द रिकॉर्ड्स. उसके बाद यहाँ पे फाइनल स्टेट आ जाएगी नीचे. Here the final state will come, and this is how activity diagram will be stopped. किसी को दिक्कत है इसको पढ़ने में? Okay, so now let's dive into details. Okay, so the first thing that comes is the alternate and parallel paths. For example, suppose you read this activity diagram. You have started from this initial node, then you have received an order. अच्छा, activity diagram को देखिए क्या बोल सकते हो? What this activity diagram is telling me? What is the process that is happening? किस process के लिए activity diagram बना है? This basically tells you the process. जो पहला एक्शन होगा बेसिकली यही बताता है. ऑनलाइन शॉपिंग एक्सप्लिसिटली नहीं, जस्ट रिसीविंग और प्लेसिंग एन ऑर्डर. ये जो फर्स्ट एक्टिविटी होगी इन योर एक्टिविटी डायग्राम, ये जो फर्स्ट ब्लॉक दिख रहा है, दैट विल ओनली टेल यू व्हाट इज this activity diagram all about. For example, if you look in the previous example, it was manage employee. So ये पहला ही जो एक्टिविटी नोड है यही आपको बता देगा that what is this activity all about. This was about managing the employee. This is about placing an order. So you have started from the initial state. You received an order, then you fill the order. Means you have packed the order. Say you have packed the order. Okay. Then you will check one condition, that whether this is expedited shipping or this is some regular shipping. If this is a expedited shipping, you will ship it overnight, and if it is a regular shipping, you will send it by parcel. चाहे overnight भेजाओ चाहे parcel से भेजाओ, finally you will again merge. ये merge हो रहा है यहाँ पे, merge at one node. वहां से finally you will close the order. So this is a simple diagram showing that you have received the order, then you have packed the order, then based on the preference, whether this was some premium shipping or this was some regular shipping, you have either sent it overnight or you send it through parcel, post, and then finally you close the order. So if you see at this point, at this first diamond circle, you are making a decision. Either you can go this side or you can go this side. दोनों एक साथ जा सकते हैं क्या? Can we go to both the direction at once? नहीं जा सकते. So this is an alternative path. इसे बोलते हैं alternative path. जितने example we have seen right now, these are your alternative paths. Means either you will go this side or you will go this side. अगर एक बार इस तरफ चलेगा तो यहीं से आगे बढ़ेंगे, एक बार इस तरफ चलेगा तो यहीं से आगे बढ़ेंगे. So this is known as alternative path. But what if after reaching this point I want कि दो चीजें simultaneously होनी चाहिए. I should be able to travel this path also. I should be able to travel this path also. मैं दोनों जगह साइमल्टेनियसली काम कर सकूं. उसके लिए द थिंग दैट इज यूज्ड इज फॉर्क. नाउ यू विल नॉट यूज दिस डायमंड हियर और फिर बोलोगे यस या नो, ये नहीं करेंगे. व्हाट वी विल डू, वी विल यूज दिस फॉर्क. दिस इज नोन एज अ फॉर्क सिंबल. दिस फॉर्क सेज that from here you can go parallelly. For example, let's see this example, the same example. You started from this initial node, you received the order. Now I'm not making alternate diamond path that I will go this side or I will go that side. I'm making a fork that after receiving the order will be filled or order will be packed and order will be shipped. अब यहाँ पे diamond बना सकते हैं, यहाँ पे individually किसी के लिए भी आगे condition check कर सकते हो, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. But what is this diagram is showing me that after receiving the order, I have started on this path. I have started packing the order and shipping the order simultaneously, parallelly. On this path, I have started to make the invoice and started the transaction process. ये दोनों parallelly हो रहे हैं, दोनों चीजें simultaneously हो रहे हैं, साथ साथ हो रहे हैं. बस इस चीज के लिए fork यूज किया जाता है. फाइनली जितने प्रोसेस साथ साथ करने कर लो, फाइनली एट लास्ट यू विल अगेन क्रिएट अ fork. मींस एंड हो गया. इतना इतने बीच में ही द सिस्टम्स वर हैविंग और एक्टिंग पैरेलली. After that you can again close the order. अब इनके बीच में you can have, for example, after filling the order, here you can again check a diamond. So tell me whether this is regular shipping or this is premium shipping. यहाँ पे you can make a diamond inside this, no issues. Okay, उसके हिसाब से depending on the conditions you can move. The main purpose of this fork is if you want to happen or you want to do some of the actions simultaneously or parallelly. दोनों चीजें parallelly होनी चाहिए. Now this thing is also happening and this is also happening at the same time. That is the use of fork. कोई दिक्कत? कोई डाउट, परेशानी? Now let's see object nodes. So what is the object node? So what we are seeing right now, this same diagram. This is you have started from here. You have, this is your initial node. Then you have received the order. Then you have sent an invoice. Then you have received the payment, and then you have closed the order. Okay, so this is the flow that is happening. This is the sequence that is happening. Okay, if you see carefully, in your normal alternative path, this was your sequence 1, this was your sequence 2, then either this was your sequence 3 or this was your sequence 3. इनमें से एक ही sequence 3 होगा. But in your fork, this is your sequence 1, then this is your sequence 2, this is your sequence 2, this is your sequence 3, this is your sequence 3. Simultaneously things are happening. Fine. Now, so what does this object node means? नो नो नो, ऐसे कंपेयर नहीं करना है और एंड से, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. दीज आर टू एक्शंस जो कि साइमल्टेनियसली हो भी सकते हैं, नहीं भी हो सकते. मतलब यहाँ पे बेसिकली यू हैव दैट फ्रीडम. जो फ्रीडम यहाँ पे नहीं था, यहाँ पे आपके पास यू वर रिस्ट्रिक्टेड. आइदर यू कुड हैव गॉन दिस साइड और यू कुड हैव गॉन दिस साइड. और नहीं बोलेंगे, और नहीं है, और कहाँ ये पहले से. तो ये इस डायग्राम में एज अ एंड काम कर रहा है. यू आर गोइंग दिस साइड ऑल्सो एंड यू आर गोइंग दिस साइड ऑल्सो. और तो है ही नहीं पहले तो ये. बेसिकली ऐसे कंपेयर मत करो, कंफ्यूज हो जाओगे. Just keep it simple. Why we use for? To show two parallel or two simultaneous actions performing together. That's it. बस इतना ही है, कोई complicated नहीं है. Now what is this object nodes? See, this is a behavioral diagram. Here the system will be moving. But if you think carefully in your whole object oriented analysis, what is that thing that can move inside a system? ऐसी क्या चीज है जो move करती है inside a system? कौन सी चीज एक डायनेमिक पार्ट है जो मूव करेगा हमेशा? In your object oriented programming, what is that thing that you create? उसके थ्रू वैल्यूज देते हो डायनेमिक, उसको डिस्ट्रॉय करते हो, क्या है वो चीज? Be specific instances, right? That are objects. Objects are those things, right? एक पूरे ऑब्जेक्ट ओरिएंटेड लैंग्वेज है, दैट इज द ओनली ऑब्जेक्ट जो क्रिएट के आप सारी ऑब्जेक्ट ओरिएंटेड प्रोग्रामिंग को एक्सेस कर सकते हो. यू वांट टू शो इनहेरिटेंस, बेसिकली क्लास तो स्टैटिक हो गया. You wanted to show inheritance between two classes, you created the static structure, but actually that inheritance is working or not, that can be checked only through an object, right? So the same thing is going here. For example, suppose I have an object name as invoice. This is my object invoice, and this is an activity diagram. Now this invoice object will also start from the initial node and will travel this path. Now tell me one thing, if that this is object invoice, if this is traveling this activity diagram, will the state of this object change or not? Will the state of this object change or not? Will the जो invoice का status इस point पे है, क्या वही invoice का status इस point पे रहेगा? क्या वही status इस point पे रहेगा? क्या वही status इस point पे रहेगा? This is an object that is moving across the system. बल्कि invoice के example की जगह take the example of a normal order. This is the order that you have placed. So receiving के वक्त उस order का status कुछ और था. After you generated the invoice, उस order का status बदल गया. After you made the payment, उसका status बदल गया. Now that order is shipped. So order is moving, right? Order का status change हो रहा है. Getting it what I'm saying? This is the thing that I want to explain you in. That in your activity diagram, और basically इसके बाद जितनी भी diagrams हम लोग आगे देखेंगे, उन सब में जब मैं बोलता हूँ कि behavioral diagram, उसका मतलब ये थोड़ी कि ये जो एरो है तुम्हारा कंट्रोल फ्लो दैट विल कीप स्टार्ट हैंगिंग, ये जो तुम्हारा एक्टिविटी है यहां से उठ के यहां आ जाएगा. दिस इज नॉट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ बिहेवियरल डायग्राम. बिहेवियरल डायग्राम मींस नाउ द सिस्टम इज इंटरैक्टिंग, और सिस्टम इंटरैक्ट सिर्फ ऑब्जेक्ट के थ्रू कर सकता है. कीप दिस थिंग इन माइंड. ओनली व्हेन ऑब्जेक्ट ट्रैवल्स फ्रॉम दिस पॉइंट टू दिस पॉइंट द सिस्टम विल इंटरैक्ट. वरना है तो ये भी एक स्ट्रक्चरल डायग्राम, ये भी तो स्टैटिक है, बना दिया खत्म. Get the essence of this, what I'm trying to say. This is not for this subject, this is for your whole object oriented programming. When I say you have a structural diagram in UML, you have like class diagrams, component diagrams, deployment diagrams, package diagrams. Say these are structural diagrams. And I say that use case diagram, this activity diagram, rest of the other diagrams, collaboration, interaction, etc., which you will see, these are behavioral diagrams. Then why this is structural, why this is behavioral? ऐसा इसमें क्या जादू? ये भी तो पेपर पे बनाया है, ये भी तो पेपर पे बनाया है. अब use case diagram is also static. There is an actor. This is use case that is fixed. Why this is a behavioral diagram? Why this is a behavioral diagram? Yeah, here this user is interacting. अगर use case diagram की बात करो तो when only this user will interact, the system will move. That is why this is behavioral. और यहाँ पे जो actor है, that is nothing but a kind of object only, जिसके बारे में बात. So only when the object starts interacting with the system moves. Then the system becomes a behavioral system. Similar is the case here. Okay. Now suppose we want to show some objects in this activity diagram. Okay, let's talk about the object known as invoice. So how you will create this object? Through this object node. Through this object node, this is a rectangular form. ऐसे एक rectangular box आएगा. ठीक है. Here you can write the object name. For example, the object name is written as invoice. And in the brackets, square brackets, you can write the current status of that object. For example, पहले इतना ही diagram था ना, ये देखो. Just keep this diagram in mind. This is my original diagram. फाइन. नाउ व्हेन यू रिसीव अ ऑर्डर, जब ऑर्डर रिसीव हो जाएगा, only then this invoice object can be created. Invoice is an object. So when this invoice can be created, किसी चीज का बिल कब बना सकते हो? जब उस चीज का ऑर्डर मिल जाए. So when you will receive the order, then you will show a control flow that okay, now my object is created. This is not a activity structure. ये एक्टिविटी हो रही है, ये जो एक्टिविटी हो रही है, ये जो एक्टिविटी हो रही है, ये जो एक्टिविटी हो रही है, डिफरेंट स्ट्रक्चर है. ये थोड़ा सा कर्व्ड रेक्टेंगुलर है. And this exact rectangular is the object representation. So when you receive an order, this is the activity. You started from the initial node, you received the order. This is the activity that has been performed. After you receive the order, one object has been created named invoice. In the square bracket, you will write the current status of that object. For example, the current status of this object invoice is that it is created. Fine. पहले activity diagram was only this. पहले activity diagram सिर्फ इतना था, यहां तक था. पहले you were starting from initial state, you received the order, you send the invoice, you made the payment, you close the order, काम खत्म. Now what I'm doing here is at every state or at every stage I'm showing the status of my object. कौन सा object? जिसके बारे में बात करनी है. For example, I want to talk about the object invoice, how this invoice object is moving inside the system. ये कैसे मूव कर रहा है, इसकी स्टेट कैसे चेंज हो रही है. So पहले तो बात करो इनवॉइस ऑब्जेक्ट क्रिएट कब होगा. किसी चीज का इनवॉइस बिल तभी क्रिएट हो सकता है जब वो ऑर्डर प्लेस किया गया हो. ऐसे ही होता है ना, अमेजन पहले से ऑर्डर का बिल थोड़ी क्रिएट हो जाएगा, चाहे ऑर्डर का पेमेंट करो चाहे ना करो. इफ यू प्लेस ऑर्डर ऑन अमेजन और फ्लिपकार्ट, क्या होता है, ऑर्डर सेक्शन में एक इनवॉइस जनरेट हो जाती है ना ऑर्डर डिलीवरी से पहले ही. हाँ या ना बोलो. So this is why this invoice object is created after you receive the object. Second activity that you are performing, this second activity, send invoice. When can this activity happen? Why it is not always that this arrow has to be towards the object, it can be away from the object also. For example, in this case, you want to send the invoice to the user. You can only send the invoice to the user only if this invoice object has been created. That is why there is an arrow from invoice to send invoice. एक ऊपर से ऐसे नीचे arrow आ रहा है, because this invoice object is needed to perform this activity. ये मतलब है इसका. Now you perform the second activity, that is send invoice. Now what is the status of this invoice object? इस पॉइंट पे स्टेटस क्या होगा? जितने एक्टिविटी, हर एक्टिविटी पे ऑब्जेक्ट का स्टेटस बताना है. पहली एक्टिविटी ये थी रिसीव्ड ऑर्डर, तो इसके बाद इनवॉइस का स्टेटस था इनवॉइस वाज क्रिएटेड. सेकंड एक्टिविटी इज दिस सेंड इनवॉइस. इनवॉइस भेज दिया टू द यूजर कि आप बिल भरो, पेमेंट करो. सो व्हाट विल बी द स्टेटस ऑफ द इनवॉइस? इट इज पेंडिंग. It is pending the payment. So this is the status at this point. Now you perform the third activity, that is receive payment. Means you receive the payment from the user. अब जब यूजर से पेमेंट मिल, इनवॉइस ऑब्जेक्ट का स्टेटस क्या हो जाएगा? सॉरी, पेड. अभी जो पेंडिंग स्टेटस था वो चेंज हो जाएगा टू द पेड स्टेटस. एंड फाइनली यू क्लोज द ऑर्डर. यहाँ पे कोई इनवॉइस की ऐसी जरूरत नहीं है, क्योंकि यू कैन नॉट राइट यहाँ पे कि इनवॉइस डिस्ट्रॉयड, है ना, ऐसा नहीं होता. इनवॉइस इज विद द कस्टमर ऑन योर पोर्टल ऑल्सो, तो इनवॉइस डिस्ट्रॉय नहीं हो जाएगी. सो यू जस्ट लीव इट. So this was just an example to show you that this is the invoice created and how the status of the invoice is changing across your system. किसी को दिक्कत है इसमें? See, I don't give you theory points. Diagram से ही I am explaining you. Whatever you want to write, you can write it. Because the same PPT code, there is no theory point here. फिर बाद में याद भी नहीं रहेगा क्या बताया था यहाँ. और फिर एग्जाम में मैं वही क्वेश्चन पूछूंगा, what I speak in the class. So it's better if you take some running notes. इसमें किसी को दिक्कत है? Fine. Shall I move forward? Okay. Now the next thing that we have to see, we are seeing this all the बेसिक एलिमेंट्स ऑफ एक्टिविटी डायग्राम नाउ, बेसिक नहीं एडवांस भी बता ही रहा हूं मैं. ओके, नाउ द नेक्स्ट थिंग दैट वी हैव टू सी इज द पिंस. है ना, ऐसे रेक्टेंगुलर शेप होता है पिंस का. सो व्हाट दिस पिंस आर यूज्ड फॉर? पिंस आर नथिंग बट इट इज यूज्ड टू ट्रांसफर डेटा. अगर एक एक्टिविटी, दिस इज योर वन एक्टिविटी और वन एक्शन, दिस इज योर सेकंड एक्शन. अच्छा, एक चीज आई फॉरगॉट टू टेल यू, दिस इज माय एक्टिविटी डायग्राम, राइट? तो ऐसा जरूरी नहीं है कि टॉप टू बॉटम ही डायग्राम ड्रॉ करना है, कि स्टार्ट वहां से करोगे खत्म यहाँ करना है, ऐसा कोई जरूरी नहीं है. यू कैन ड्रॉ इट हॉरिजॉन्टली ऑल्सो. मीन्स ये आपकी इनिशियल स्टेट होगी, फिर सेकंड एक्टिविटी, फिर फर्स्ट एक्टिविटी, सेकंड एक्टिविटी, ऐसा करते करते यू कैन ड्रॉ इट हॉरिजॉन्टली ऑल्सो. ठीक है, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. Now this pins are nothing but it is used to transfer some data. If suppose this is my initial state, from here I have started, this is my first action, action 1. Now from action 1 I went to action 2. This is the second step that I am doing, action 2. Now if this action 1 wants to transfer some data to action 2, it can use a pin that I want to transfer you the value of n as 2. You take the value of n as 2. If you want to transfer some data like this, it is used, pins are used. Okay, for example, see, here is your action, this is action 2. Now if action 2 needs some input from action 1, then you will use pins. For example, suppose you have this action, filled order, and you have this ship order, मतलब order यहाँ पे आपने पैक कर लिया, and here you are shipping the order. Now to ship order, what you need the address. So this packing order activity will transfer a pin, say address, that take this address, at this address you have to ship. तो यहाँ आउटपुट से भी ऐसे एड्रेस निकलेगा, एंड हियर द इनपुट, द शिपिंग ऑर्डर विल टेक द इनपुट आल्सो एज एड्रेस. Getting it? Let's see another example. Suppose you have this example. This is your first activity that you are performing, that is calculate score, and some argument is there of n. You have to calculate some score of n. Then this is your second activity, that display the score n. So now if you see this first activity closely, what data you need to perform this activity, close score of n? You are calculating some score of n. So what data you need to perform this activity? इसको करने के लिए क्या डेटा चाहिए? n. You need n. You need the value of this n, right? That is why this calculate score activity is having an input pin. This is the input pin. वहां पे लिखा है n, मतलब इस calculate score activity के पास someone is sending the value of n, जिसको लेके वो n की वैल्यू कैलकुलेट करेगा. Now suppose you have to display the score of n. You want to display this score of n. So this calculate score n activity will send a pin. अब ये आउटपुट करेगी एक पिन. क्या डेटा आउटपुट करेगी? n न्यू स्कोर. कोई भी वैल्यू हो सकती है, कोई भी डेटा हो सकता है. जो चीज आउटपुट किया है इसने, द वैल्यू दैट हैज बीन आउटपुटेड बाय दिस कैलकुलेट स्कोर n एक्टिविटी, दैट विल बी टेकन एज अ इनपुट बाय दिस डिस्प्ले स्कोर एक्टिविटी. बेसिकली व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू से इज कि जो पहली एक्टिविटी आउटपुट कर रही है, द सेम डेटा इज गोइंग एज अ इनपुट हियर. If you look here, whatever this fill order was outputting, shipping order या address, वही चीज, वही सेम डेटा एज अ इनपुट जा रहा है टू द नेक्स्ट एक्टिविटी. ऐसा नहीं कि रास्ते में बदल जा रहा है, कि आपने एड्रेस भेजा था सिर्फ पिन कोड पहुंचा, ऐसा नहीं हो रहा है. whatever you are outputting, the same value is getting as an input to this pin. Is it clear to everyone? Now suppose you want to change this. You say that okay, यहाँ से तो मैं कुछ भेज रहा हूँ, यहाँ से मैं x भेज रहा हूँ, लेकिन वो एज अ x यहाँ पे इनपुट नहीं जाना चाहिए. That should transfer. For example, this is my receive time card. This is the time how many hours the employees working in an organization. This activity is representing that. Now this is the second activity, that is calculating the overtime. Now the second activity needs that please tell me the time, that how many hours a employee has worked. So this receive time, जिसके पास है ये सारा time, he will make a output pin and he will output. क्या output करेगा कि there are n employees जिसने इतने hours काम किया है. There are n employees जिसने इतने hours काम किया है. But this second activity, calculate overtime, doesn't need कि इसने कितने घंटे टोटल काम किए. Overtime calculate करने के लिए it needs a certain condition, that the number of hours should be greater than equal to 40. Don't send me all the hours the employee has worked. तुमने तो सारे भेज दिए hours, ठीक है, मुझे सारे नहीं चाहिए as a input. सारे रख के मैं क्या करूंगा, मुझे एक particular value चाहिए, that please tell me the number of hours that are greater than equal to 40. So the output which you have sent from here has changed here, isn't it? Right? So how you will represent this change? Okay, क्योंकि अगर जो आउटपुट पिन भेज रहा है वही इनपुट पिन ले रहा है, डेटा सेम है, तब तो कुछ नहीं करना है, तब तो यू हैव टू मेक इट लाइक दिस ओनली, नथिंग कॉम्प्लिकेटेड. बट इफ वॉट एवर यू आर आउटपुटिंग वो चेंज हो जा रहा है एज अ इनपुट टू अनदर एक्टिविटी, देन यू हैव टू यूज दिस ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन. ये कुछ नहीं, एक नोट है, नोट के अंदर एक स्टीरियोटाइप लिख दिया ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन, ये बताने के लिए कि वॉट एवर आउटपुट वी हैव सेंट, दैट आउटपुट हैज बीन नॉट ट्रांसफॉर्म्ड इनटू सम अदर इनपुट. चेंज हो गया, जो आपने आउटपुट पिन से भेजा था वो चेंज हो गया रास्ते में, देयर इज अ ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन. So this is a note on which we have used genotype transformation to show that this is not a normal note, this is a transformation. और ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन में क्या लिखेंगे, ये आर्स क्या चेंज किया हुआ है इस पूरे में, n आर्स और n h ग्रेटर देन 40 में चेंज किया हुआ है, ये आर्स और ये h ग्रेटर देन इक्वल टू 40 चेंज हुआ है. सो इन द ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन यू विल राइट आर्स h ग्रेटर देन इक्वल टू 40. बेसिकली बताने के लिए कुछ भी लिख सकते हो, ऐसा कुछ वो नहीं. इट्स जस्ट हियर टू एक्सप्लेन दैट समथिंग हैज चेंज्ड, इस रास्ते में कुछ चेंज हो गया डेटा. कोई दिक्कत? फाइन. So what we have seen, मैं starting से देख लेता हूँ. So this was our activity diagram. This was initial node, this was control flow, है ना? This was your decision node. ये activities है सारी जो थोड़े से rounded rectangular box में. Finally, this is your final node. Okay. Then we have seen that this is your alternate path. If you are making a diamond check, if you are making a diamond decision, this is like if else. Either you can go this side or you can go this side. But if you want to go both the sides simultaneously, दोनों चीजें एक साथ perform करना चाहते हो, you will use fork. You will use this fork. Okay, इससे क्या होगा, fill order and send invoice simultaneously काम करेंगे. Ship order, receive payment simultaneously काम करेंगे. The activities inside the fork will happen simultaneously or parallelly. Then we have seen object nodes. Object nodes is nothing but if you try to create one object and you want to transfer or bypass this object from the whole system, then you will check, okay, what is the status of my object at every stage or at every activity of my activity diagram. For example, I created object invoice. I will check कि पहली activity के वक्त उसका status क्या था. It was just created. Then after the second activity, the invoice भेज दिया, send invoice. तब उसका status क्या है? It is pending. What is the status after the third activity? It is paid. So this is how you can, अब सिर्फ invoice के लिए नहीं है, you can create any object और उसका status check कर सकते हैं. How object is moving across the system. Then we have seen pins. What are pins? If you want to transfer data from one activity to another, you will use pins. Output pin will transfer the data, input pin will receive the data. If the data are same, means whatever you are outputting is same as the input, then you don't have to do anything else. But if you transfer something as the output, but that whole thing is not taken as an input by the other activity, that thing is modified, that data is modified a little bit, so that you will show with the help of this transformation stereotype. In a note, normal note, you will write transformation. And what is transformed? Hours are transformed as overtime hours. या जो भी लिखना चाहते हो उसमें. इतनी चीजों में दिक्कत किसी को? clear? Clear to everyone, right? My last topic for today. Okay, after that I will end the class. वैसे सोचा और भी पढ़ाने का था, but let's go. No need to hurry up. This is the last topic for today. Sub activity diagrams. So what are sub activity diagrams? If you see this diagram, this is a activity diagram, right? But if I suppose, अब activity diagram में क्या है? This is a single process, receive membership application. This is another activity. This is another activity. This is another activity. This is another activity. But suppose you want to express activity more. You want to show more decompositions inside activity. You want to show activity inside activity. जैसे suppose ये activity है, process membership. अब इसको लिख तो दिया एक्टिविटी डायग्राम में एक जगह, बट इसको और एक्सप्लेन करना है. यू नीड टू एक्सप्लेन इट मोर दैट हाउ दिस थिंग इज वर्किंग. देन वी गो फॉर सब एक्टिविटी डायग्राम्स. उसका रिप्रेजेंटेशन होता है ये रेक सिंबल. अब ये जो तिल तलवार बना हुआ है, whatever this symbol is called, this is the symbol for a sub activity diagram. अब ये सिंबल हर जगह नहीं होता है. I don't think this is present in star UML also. तो अगर कहीं प्रेजेंट नहीं है तो you can make it with the help of पेंट से बना के भी चिपका सकते हैं, ऐसी कोई दिक्कत नहीं है ना. नोट चिपका दो यहाँ पे एक, that this is a sub activity diagram, कुछ भी. Okay, but generally in visual representation this is the representation, this is a rake representation. Okay, this is saying that this is your activity diagram, and inside this activity diagram you have this activity known as process membership, but this is not closed yet. इसके अंदर भी बहुत कुछ defined है. Okay, कैसे define है वो अभी आगे देखेंगे, but this is defined. This is defined more. Now tell me, what is this? What do you think this is? This is your initial state, means यहाँ से activity diagram start हुआ है. This is your final state, means यहाँ पे activity diagram खत्म हुआ है. What is this? What is this cross? See, I do initially also only 3 or 4 students are answering in the classes. This will hamper your internal marks a lot. Don't tell me in the last कि सर internals में कम हो गया. बढ़ाऊंगा किसी के एक नंबर नहीं मैं. If you are not responding in the classes. This cross basically means that this activity is closed. Okay, not it is the end for this activity. मतलब यहाँ से send invoice के बाद अब यहाँ से आगे नहीं बढ़ना है, यहाँ से activity खत्म होगी. Okay, so this cross symbol is the end for a particular activity, but this final state, this is the end for the whole activity diagram. So this is how you will show a subsystem. अब ये बनेगा कैसे? When you will open this subsystem, इसका structure क्या है? This is the structure. This is the structure of a subsystem. ये बनाना कुछ नहीं होता है, ये सब अवेलेबल होता है if you need. वैसे generally I'll tell you, you don't have to go in this much depth, because ये क्या कर रहा है? ये आपके सिस्टम को और कॉम्प्लिकेटेड कर रहा है, isn't it? एक सिंपल सा एक्टिविटी डायग्राम बनाने की जगह you are again expanding this, so it is unnecessarily complicating the system. But if it is needed, that नहीं, बहुत मजबूरी है, बनाना ही पड़ेगा सब सिस्टम, बताना ही पड़ेगा कि इस सिस्टम के अंदर भी एक सब सिस्टम है, then you can definitely go for it. Okay, so this is the representation of this. First you will write the sub activity name. For example, what is the sub activity here? Process membership. So you will write here process membership. जिस एक्टिविटी को एक्सपैंड कर रहे हो उसको. दिस इज योर इनपुट पैरामीटर, मतलब यहाँ से इनपुट आओगे, यहाँ से घुसोगे सब एक्टिविटी के अंदर, जो भी परफॉर्मेंस करनी है यहाँ पे करोगे, एंड यू विल आउट फ्रॉम हियर. दिस इज द इनडोर, दिस इज द आउटडोर ऑफ दिस सब एक्टिविटी सिस्टम. फॉर एग्जाम्पल दिस सेम प्रोसेस मेंबरशिप, अब इसके लिए एक सब एक्टिविटी डायग्राम बनाना है. सो यू हैव इंटर्ड फ्रॉम हियर, दिस इज द प्रोसेस मेंबरशिप, मतलब किसी को मेंबरशिप देनी है, किसको मेंबरशिप नहीं देनी. सो फ्रॉम हियर यू हैव इंटर्ड द सिस्टम that the membership application has been received. This is the input point, this is the starting point. किसी को मेंबरशिप देनी है कि नहीं, उसके लिए सबसे स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट है कि मेंबरशिप रिसीव हो, एप्लीकेशन रिसीव हो. फर्स्ट यू विल रिसीव द एप्लीकेशन. आफ्टर यू रिसीव द एप्लीकेशन, यू हैव, अब इसके अंदर दिस इज अ सब सिस्टम, लिसन दी वर्ड केयरफुली, दिस इज अ सब सिस्टम। इसके अंदर खुद का एक एक्टिविटी डायग्राम हो सकता है पूरा का पूरा, इजंट इट? एक सब सिस्टम के अंदर ऑब्वियसली इफ यू आर एक्सपैंडिंग, अ सब सिस्टम विल कंटेन अ एक्टिविटी डायग्राम ऑफ इट्स ओन। इसके अंदर खुद का एक एक्टिविटी डायग्राम हो सकता है, इसके अंदर भी सब सिस्टम हो सकता है जिसके खुद के डायग्राम्स हो सकते हैं। दिस इज काइंड ऑफ अ नेस्टेड डायग्राम्स दैट यू आर मेकिंग नाउ, रिकर्शन चल रहा है ना, इंसेप्शन वाली मूवी चल रही है अभी, दैट सेम थिंग इज हैपनिंग, यू आर गोइंग डीप इनसाइड। सो फर्स्ट यू विल रिसीव द मेंबरशिप एप्लीकेशन, आफ्टर दैट यू विल, अब इसके अंदर कुछ भी एक्टिविटी डायग्राम हो सकता है, दिस इज जस्ट फॉर एन एग्जांपल, फॉर एग्जांपल देन यू परफॉर्म द डिसीजन that whether that application which I have received is a premium membership or it is not a premium membership. If it is a premium membership, then add that application to a VIP club. If that is not a premium membership, then add it to some other thing. Then you merged both of the paths and finally you assign some membership ID to it. Finally you assign some membership ID to it and then you out, यहाँ से exit कर गए। So ये क्या था, ये पूरा जो structure है, this is nothing but a activity diagram इनसाइड दिस एक्टिविटी। एक एक्टिविटी डायग्राम की एक्टिविटी के अंदर एक एक्टिविटी डायग्राम था, हो गया काइंड ऑफ नेस्टेड एक्टिविटी डायग्राम्स। किसी को दिक्कत है इसमें? ठीक है, इसके बाद वी विल सी इन द नेक्स्ट क्लास। यू हैव एनी डाउट्स इन दिस? Okay, so I'll end the class today.